found his skeleton, how would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to Cat with Bent number 91, Predator. As you guys can see, I put Ken Hoven's face over the Predator from, the movie Predator. Actually, technically it's from a video game because I couldn't get a great picture of the Predator's face that was high definition and not at a weird angle, but that doesn't matter. Yes, I'm being extremely open in my opinion of Mr. Hoven there. I am, in fact, saying that he is a predator. He preys on primarily Christians. I'm not saying that he is some kind of offender who would go on a registry. However, I am saying that he preys on people for their time, money, livelihoods, all that stuff. Yeah, and of course, I think he runs an abusive cult. So, rather than making some kind of pun, I was like, you know what? No, the name already fits. It's good. We're already good with it. So, Ben, what are you drinking today before we get right into it?
I've got some chamomile in the Don't Be Dumbass mug, and then I've got flavored iced tea, water combination kind of deal.
In the plain glass?
In the plain glass, yeah.
Okay. Well, I have some Angry Orchard.
No alcohol for me.
I have some Angry Orchard unfiltered. I have that because I do like the tartness and a little bit of sweet, but it's less sweet than their other offerings. And sometimes I want to change it up from like a beer or like rum and coke or something. That's what I'm rocking. Which of course brings us to the whole point, which is that today we're going to, of course, like every day, or well, every Tuesday, well, many of the Tuesdays, we're going to take some Tuesdays. We're going to take a look at Kent Hoven. We're going to have some drinks at How Stupid He Is, because we do have a drinking game. And then we're going to just keep on with that. We are actually going to have a new drink trigger, but first we're going to go over the old drink triggers, and Bent is going to make sure that I get them all, because I try to get them all from memory, but I often fail. It's like a challenge for me. Right? So, first I want to say, though, that if you decide to play along, first, you do not have to play along with alcohol. You can play along with non-alcoholic beverages. You can play along lots of different ways. If you do decide to play along with alcohol, please do be careful. Know your own limits. When I take a drink, I'm not taking like a shot of hard liquor or anything. I'm taking, like a couple tablespoons worth of like cider here. It's like, what is my ABV here? 6%. So,
And I know my limit, which is why I don't use alcohol when I play this game.
Exactly. And of course, if you do drink, make sure that you don't then go operate any heavy machinery or drive any cars, fly any planes, or anything like that, because the Dapper Dinosaur channel, as well as Bent Hoven, my guests, and all affiliated persons, we absolutely do not take any liability or responsibility for any death, dismemberment, damage to property, anything like that that happens to you or anyone else. This is an at-your-own-risk participation kind of thing. That being said, first, we take a drink whenever Kent Hoven says something that's so stupid we just kind of have to, which is our most frequent one. And yes, it is informal, but it's basically, if I feel like my brain is about to melt, I take a drink. You also take a drink whenever Kent Hoven unironically gets something right, and is not just reading something out of like a textbook or some other thing. If it's not a direct quotation and he gets it right, we take a drink. Now, of course, we have Chris Reese, who has demonstrated one of our drink triggers that the audience can cause, which is that if you guys super chat or do a membership milestone chat, or we hear Godzilla or Mothra, which, we're currently hearing, take a drink. So we're actually now going to take 2 drinks. One for Chris Reese, and one, actually no, 3. One for Godzilla, one for Mothra, one for Chris Reese.
Wow. Chamomile tea.
Which means, and there's another Mothra. We're already. Wait, so, you can only send those emojis if you are a channel member. I believe first-time channel memberships are actually 50% off right now. So today is a great time to get a channel membership, because that leads into the new drink trigger that I'm adding, which is if anyone decides to gift channel memberships, we'll take a drink for that. That is an option. If you check down in I believe in the supers, you'll be able to gift memberships. The way that works is basically you can pay for, I think, 5, 10, or 20, I'm not sure exactly, memberships. And if you do that, then people will be randomly selected to receive a free 1-month membership. If you don't have to do anything to cancel it, because YouTube will just cancel the membership and not renew it automatically. You have to actually manually go in and renew it if you want to. But it's just to give more people access to, the super, the emojis and things like that. Getting at least temporary access to the Discord server if you give people those. And it's weighted so that people who participate more in chat are more likely to get gift memberships when those are given out. Basically, I just instituted as a drink trigger just because I feel like, one, you guys might not know that it's a thing, and two, I think it might be fun to get some more people just in the membership, just for fun, just for a month or so. There you go. So, Star Runner just gifted a membership, so we'll take a drink. Thank you very much. You do have to set your YouTube as able to receive gift memberships if you do that. So, let's take a look. You also take a drink if Kent. Oh no, bag of dicks. If you super chat anything to the effect that AIG is a bag of dicks, take a drink. And this is coming up to be important again because I currently am working on a script for an AIG talk. It is with the late David Menton, and normally I probably wouldn't have done this because I think Darren Naish and Aaron Ra covered it really well. But I was in the live chat covering it in real time on the AIG channel, so my capture of the video includes the live chat with me in it. And I got 2 or 3 different requests to actually cover this, so I figured, you know what, fine, I'll cover it. I'll make a whole script. I'll probably link to the Aaron Ra, Darren Naish series as well. Because, like I said, I thought they did a really good job. Of course, Darren Naish being an actual professional paleontologist, right? So, read a couple super chats here. Mackenzie Brown says, for $2, I'm late. What's the bev tonight? Tonight we're doing hard cider. It is an unfiltered hard cider, which is less sweet than most hard ciders, and it is unfiltered, so it's kind of hazy. Which I don't really care about the haziness. I just like that it's a little bit less sweet. And TikTok for 10 pesos, Argentinian pesos, says Young Earth Creationism. Young Earth Creationists had a convention, I think, in Germany. Some misbehaved, so the Krampus took them away. I think that's some kind of police. He took Raw, Matt, Kent Hovind, and Matt. Or anyone else understand why suddenly he was carrying an AIG? Oh, I see what's going on there. That was a super stealth AIG as a bag of dicks. Take a drink for that. Okay, also
a lot of drinks on the drink counter for the part we are in the show. Right. We haven't even finished the rules yet.
Yeah, it's let's see. Oh, and Snorefoot received the gift membership from Star Runner. So welcome to the membership, Snorefoot. You now have access to all the membership benefits. At least for the month that it lasts. And like I said, if you want to, you can opt to renew it. Unlike all those things where it's like, hey, if you get like some meal kit in the mail with a free discount, it automatically subscribes you to the repeating payment. This one doesn't do that. You have to manually turn it on if you want to stay. Anyway, we take a drink whenever Kent Hovind tells a story that didn't happen. Whenever he mentions the National Socialist German Workers' Party, their leaders, their prominent activities, especially in like the periods of like the 1930s and 1940s, which he does a lot. We also will take a drink anytime Kent tells a joke that doesn't land. And I have lost track. What have I missed so far?
If we make a prediction.
Prediction, there you go.
On something that Kent might say, and it becomes true. It's like it's a true prediction. We would drink for that. Okay. I like to make predictions every once in a while. They're always wrong.
Well, that's okay.
That's okay.
All right. Are we ready for Kent?
Unfortunately, yes, we are.
All right.
There's also one called Creation Illustrated.
Talk about magazines.
Which is good. We encourage people to get either one of them, but they're unrelated to each other. This is an article. I think the book is called Origins, or the magazine is called Origins, and the article is called Coral Reef Growth back in 1979. But that's where they said, look, it's...
Oh, guys, in case you don't remember, anytime there's an audio or video glitch, that's because Satan is messing with the audio. That's what they said at the beginning of this, was that, the forces of Satan were fritzing around with all the audio and the video stuff. So, forgive them.
Around 4,000 years old. Now, keep in mind, this is not one growing organism. It's a whole bunch of organisms. of each other. It's a colony of coral. You know, one dies, leaves its body behind, and the next one grows on top.
Skeleton, not the whole body. But yeah, I mean, we'll take a drink for Kent being basically correct that coral reefs, like the coral part, is not a single organism. It is an ongoing colony where, you know, older members die and leave behind their skeletons, which are then grown upon by newer members. Good job, Kent.
But why would the oldest or largest reef in the world be less than 4,200 years old?
It's not, actually. I think we did sort of check into this last time, but we're gonna double check again. Let's see. Great Barrier Reef age. We'll just check. Because it's oh look. We got 8,490,000 1.05 science.org. There you go. Yeah. Let's see what this current But yeah, so it's not 4,000 years old. That's as simple as it is. Because the thing is, look, Kent's argument here is if the oldest reef in the world is 4,000 years old, then something must have happened to destroy all the older reefs before that. Which, even if it were true that the Great Barrier Reef were only 4,000 years old instead of, you know, probably more like 1 million years old, that doesn't mean that something had to happen before 4,000 or around 4,000 years ago to get rid of all the older reefs. That could just mean that's how long reefs tend to last, right? So it's sort of like oldest person is usually somewhere in like their 110s, right? Or teens, like, oh, the oldest person is like 117, 14, right? Nothing happened about 120 years ago that got rid of all the older humans. That's not a thing. That's just how long humans last. So even if it were true that that's how old the oldest reef is, it doesn't mean anything. It's a completely fallacious argument.
There was a flood 4,400 years ago. Now that flood would have totally rearranged the surface.
So
there was a flood 4,400 years ago.
So here's the thing about a flood, a big violent worldwide flood. It would probably kill off all coral, because even if we ignore the salinity problems, right? Coral need relatively warm, calm, clear water. Because one, some of them are actually symbiotic with photosynthetic.
Not like plasma water?
Not like plasma water, or even if we assume that there is no heat. Oh, drink for Mothra. So even if we ignore the heat problem, and we just say that, you know, it's perfectly comfortable temperature, you're still getting muddy, sediment-laden water all over the place. So one, many coral are symbiotic with algae. They actually require photosynthesis to survive. But even other ones require animals themselves eat algae in relatively shallow water in order for them to filter feed. Or some of them even directly filter feed planktonic algae and things like that. You can't have these little tiny animals go a year without access to sunlight and then just survive. So even if the flood did rearrange the surface of the earth and now coral has to start anew, there wouldn't be any coral. Coral would have to be on the ark if it were to survive. So I guess maybe Ken Ham should add an entire aquarium section to Ark Park.
Maybe he was just stuck to the outside. Like barnacles.
Maybe.
To the earth and reestablished ocean levels, water levels, and reefs would have to start growing from scratch. Though some might have started growing on top of a previous reef if it happened to end up at the right elevation in the water.
Okay, so what he's just done there subtly, right, is he said, look, if it turns out that some of these reefs are actually older, well, that's okay too.
Got it, thanks.
Yep, thanks, Kent. Thanks for making sure that
Didn't need your permission for that, but glad we got it.
It's just him making sure that his idea is completely unfalsifiable. If the oldest reefs are 4,000 years, then great. He's got a great explanation for it. If they're not, then that's okay too. Don't worry.
He's already got his out. Mm-hmm. He's ready.
Yep.
If a coral reef after the flood, excuse me, if a pre-flood reef ended up 30 feet above sea level,
he literally just did is the funny part. He just had the water up to his mouth.
All going to die.
Paying attention.
Okay. If it ends up 300 feet below sea level, it's all going to die. It's got to be a certain distance, depending upon the clarity of the water, depending upon the latitude. If it's too cold, it can't live down by Antarctica. You got to figure this world was totally destroyed by this flood.
Okay, so Kent knows that the coral couldn't survive the flood here. Because he's just told us he knows roughly what the growth requirements of coral are. So, okay, Kent, we're just going to take a drink for you realizing that your entire statement is nonsense and just not caring. That's amazing.
So some of the coral would happen to be at the right elevation, start growing again. There could possibly be some reefs that they find that exhibit even more than 4,300. Here's why.
Okay, here we go.
Suppose in the pre-flood world, everything was perfect.
I don't really know what that means, but sure, why not?
And coral could grow like crazy. Let's say it could grow 10 times faster.
Why? What would make you
Why
think
not?
it could... Okay.
Let's just say that.
Tiktaalik for 50 Argentinian pesos says, Noah tried to save all the fish from the salinity problem, but his submarine ark got overflooded by the 20,000 species of trilobite. Yeah, Noah had trouble fitting all 20,000 on that ark submarine. Oh my goodness. Here's some cans.
Pick a number.
Oh, right, no, the 5 times growth thing. Okay, so the thing is, we already know what the ideal growth conditions for coral are for various species because this has been studied. This is because human activity has been causing a lot of coral die-offs, right? So there's a lot of interest in preserving and growing coral reefs right now. So scientists have spent a lot of time looking at what is the fastest that coral can grow. What are the ideal conditions? So unless Kent wants to tell us what the even more ideal conditions are, and then, grow his own artificial coral reef to demonstrate that this is actually a better, growth scenario than the ideal conditions scientists have come up with, there's literally no reason to take seriously the idea that the Earth was so perfect for coral before the flood that they could grow 5 or 10 times faster. And of course, like we just pointed out, it's literally just him hedging his bets so that when someone invariably finds a coral reef older than 4,000 years, which they already have, it's already the Great Barrier Reef, he can say, well, it's a continuation of a pre-flood, coral reef, and they grow 10 times faster. But of course, remember, coral reefs have to grow on the basis of coral dying and leaving behind their old skeletons, which means basically what Kent is saying is, not only did coral grow 10 or 5 times faster, I think he said, they also apparently die 5 times faster. I don't know why that's better. That doesn't seem obviously better as a coral. Ian Debunked for 5 United States dollars says, animal group names are fun, a deceit of lapwings, an implausibility of news, an unkindness of ravens, or perhaps most fitting, an AIG of trouser snakes. Very nice.
Ew.
Take a drink for that. I am going to be running out of this first bottle of cider like really soon.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, here we go.
Then you get this big flood, destroys the world. Now after the flood, that reef happens to end up about the right elevation and it starts growing again. But now its growth rate is much slower.
From nothing?
Yeah, from all.
Because I thought it was killed in the flood. That's the whole point of the flood, to kill everything.
I am almost certain.
Did the flood not work? It didn't work for the coral?
I'm almost certain that at no point will he describe how coral managed to survive the flood year, without growing in a reef.
It was specially created again after the flood by God.
So it
that
didn't
must
survive.
have been it.
Which then just begs the question, why bother with
it doesn't make sense, right? Because, how could the flood kill... isn't coral an animal? It killed all animals.
Well, it does technically in the text say that everything on land that wasn't in the ark died. So that's why creationists just like to pretend that everything in the water would just have survived somehow, even though they absolutely would not have.
The point of the flood is to kill the things by drowning them.
Yeah. All right.
So we take today's growth rate, drill down into that reef, and say, wow, that's 14,000 years old. Based on today's growth rate, yes.
Okay, so Kent, your entire point was saying the oldest coral reef was 4,000 years old. Now you're saying we don't actually have that. We just have to pretend that for some reason coral growth was longer. you could have saved face by just not including all this coral growth stuff. Like, that would have been
Yeah,
the
just
better
don't
move.
even bring it up.
Yeah.
But see, the growth rate would have changed because of the oceans changing, the atmosphere changing. Too many
Yes,
changes
of
after that flood.
Course.
Yes, obviously.
Okay.
It's science.
Before we start in
I mean,
Niagara Falls,
There's no
which
numbers,
is
but
We're going back to Niagara Falls. I was hoping we had left that off. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
the next one, another evidence the Earth is not billions of years old.
Yes, because the Earth has to be at least as old as
Yeah,
Niagara
doesn't-
Falls. Niagara Falls couldn't have started falling after the Earth formed.
that's not how logic works. We talked about this last week.
Yep.
Kent doesn't understand logic.
No, he does not.
Let's take a couple-minute break, and I want you to go in and take a look at the bristlecone pine
Oh, okay.
and just try to count the rings. You see what I'm talking about, how tight they are. It's pretty cool. All right, back in 5 minutes. All right, let's take up where we left off here. More ways to prove the Earth is not billions of years old. These are called...
First, who gives their class a 5-minute break? That's barely even enough time to go, like, fill up a water bottle. Give your guys, like, a 10-minute break, man.
15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 would be better.
It's 15 minutes.
indicators. Geochronometers is another word for it. You know, how old is the Earth? Well, there's no data on it, obviously, but so there's all kinds of ways you can try to kind of test how old it is. The guy, somebody mentioned during the break about calling the pastor.
ways.
I would recommend you that are taking these class by live or
Oh, we got a Mothra. Drink for Mothra. Thanks, Mothra.
by tape, call all these people. So you can say, I talked to them.
Okay, look. In case you guys are new or you haven't seen some of the more recent episodes, Kent Hovind likes to just blast people's personal phone numbers in his talks. Now, at this point, I don't think those numbers still work. I haven't tried any of them. But it's really weird, and I don't think that the fact that this was done in like 2004 makes it all that much less weird.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
You know, it just adds credibility. I talked to the guy that it happened to.
That doesn't add credibility. Look, here's the thing, right?
Yeah, but he talked to the guy.
Doesn't matter.
The guy couldn't have been lying. Kent talked to him.
Look,
Therefore, he must have been telling the truth.
if you talk to a person who says they were abducted by aliens, that doesn't mean they were abducted by aliens. If you talk to a person who says they saw a Loch Ness Monster, that doesn't make Loch Ness Monster real. Science doesn't work on the basis of eyewitness accounts. Eyewitness accounts, what they can do for science is indicate areas that should be investigated. So if you have a whole bunch of people say, oh, hey, I saw a Loch Ness Monster, then science can say, okay, well, let's look for it. You don't just assume that it's true because people said they saw it. Go in and you do things like, you do sonar sounding of the entire lake of Loch Ness. Do things like you do eDNA studies to see if there are any unknown organisms, which actually has been done. eDNA stands for environmental DNA. And so basically you just take samples of the environment and run genetic sequencing techniques to see what organisms are out there. It turns out there were some unknown animals in the loch. Freshwater eels that still to this day no one has ever seen, but they're probably not big enough to be the Loch Ness Monster. So, yeah. All right, here we go.
Plus, if you find any phone numbers have changed, you know, because I keep notes in here continually, and I keep 7,000 slides all up to date, you know, call me. I'll fix my slide, okay? Try to trace them, or if you can't find them, we'll see if we
Sure
can.
you
You know,
will.
here's a picture of Niagara Falls. I've preached 3 or 4 times, four times
Taken
now
by
in
a
Buffalo,
potato.
and I always try to go over.
Yeah, well, this entire lecture, like the highest resolution I've ever found any of the videos in was like 480. So I'm pretty sure they were all recorded on VHS, even though this was done in like 2004 and digital cameras were available for consumer. Pretty sure Kent was just still using his old equipment from 1995.
It still works.
I mean, yeah, technically.
And see the falls when I get there. It's just incredible. Any of you ever seen Niagara Falls?
Okay, guys, we know what happens. Whenever Kent asks his audience a question, I ask my audience a question. Have you seen...
And then I get to
Niagara
tell everybody I
Falls.
voted. That's even more important. I voted.
Have you seen Niagara? There you go. Oh, and hey, Peter's here. Hello, Peter. It's nice to have you here. Peter is on my short list of top young Earth creationists. Mostly because of the young Earth creationists who are on YouTube, he's one of 3 that I can say is actually a pretty stand-up guy, and not a horrible, horrible piece of crap like many of them are.
Unfortunately,
Yeah. Peter is representing the the side of Big Young Earth creationism that I would go have like a lunch with and hang out with, and not the side that I think maybe needs professional help to see why they have so many antisocial behavior patterns. Yeah. Anyway.
And well worth going to see.
Oh, we got
Niagara Falls is huge. This is the Canadian side of it. There's actually two parts to the falls. But the textbook here...
It's not that it's two parts of the fall. It's one waterfall. It's just that the border between the United States and Canada in that area is defined by the midpoint of the river. So one side of it is by treaty Canada, the other side is by treaty USA. It's not like waterfall itself gives a crap about these international borders.
It says, the rocky ledge above Niagara Falls has been eroding for nearly 9,900 years.
Okay, so longer than you think the universe has been around. Already a problem, but sure.
How could they make a statement like that?
Oh, they probably did something like checked current erosion rates, checked the geology downstream to see if the geology would hold, or if harder or softer rocks have been eroded, which they would then use to adjust their estimates for erosion. And then they basically just did some math. That's probably how they would say that. I mean, now, do I know? No, I'm not an expert at the dating of Niagara Falls, but that seems like a pretty good way to do it to me.
How would you know? Well, the water is going over the edge, and it breaks the rocks off the edge. All waterfalls do that, okay? Gradually, the water breaks off the edge.
Hey, Ken got it right. We'll take a drink.
The rocks break off the edge, and the water's going to move back. The falls is going to move back. It breaks the rocks off also because underneath the layer of dolostone on top, it's softer underneath. So it erodes the lower part, and then you got this ledge hanging out, all of a sudden it snaps off. You can go up...
I don't know if that's true, but it doesn't sound implausible.
Up there and buy video footage of some huge chunks of rock breaking off. There were some, I don't know if people were killed or not, but there were some large slabs that broke off one time where it used to be a observation platform. People stand there and watch. All of a sudden, whole thing's gone. An area the size of this room falls off. This this map is from a Niagara Falls museum guide. No, the map is actually from a textbook, I believe. A textbook that I have in my library there. I should get the picture of the date on here. It's one of the geology or earth science textbooks. Anyway, it has been known for several hundred years Niagara Falls is eroding back. That's normal. All waterfalls do that. You can see the line.
Get to a point.
I feel like we've established that already.
Seriously. The thing is, once he knows that every once in a while he'll get something where he's right, and he'll just go over it ad nauseum because, like, hey, I'm definitely right about this. No one disagrees with me. Yeah, Kent, that's why you should get past it. Spend lots of time establishing the things that no one agrees with you with. Because those are the things that actually matter for your point. Don't spend like a half an hour talking about, hey guys, erosion's totally a real thing though. Yeah, we all know.
Lines on there where it used to be in 1764 and then in 1918. It erodes back about 4.7 feet a year, according to the museum guide. Now, in the 1930s, you notice since 1927, it hasn't gone back much. Well, that's because in 1930, they dug a channel beside it to drain the water off to use to make hydroelectric power. They can actually divert all of the water and dry the falls up if they want. They can shut off Niagara Falls.
I have no idea how true that is. I don't particularly care.
And
they do sometimes if they want.
Kent thought it was funny.
Oh, yeah. Does that count as a joke that didn't land? I'm thirsty. It does.
Why not? Why not? I'm only drinking water.
Well, I'm drinking cider, and it's delicious.
So it doesn't matter to me.
They shut it off. You can't really shut it off, but they divert the water through this other channel.
Oh, you can't shut it off. Got it.
Which turns the turbines and makes electricity
I
for
think it's just
who
a
knows
figure
how
of
far.
speech. And if you're rerouting the water and there's no more waterfall, then sure, you shut it off.
I also like that we have to be told what hydroelectricity is. Like we didn't. Like, who cares? On the one hand,
Yes, to Kent explain to us.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, Tesla, the guy that made the Tesla coil we've got right here, was the guy who went to Niagara Falls and built the first.
That's right.
He made that particular Tesla coil.
Yeah, Ken has a Tesla original.
The OG Tesla coil.
Generator to generate electricity in America. Nikolai Tesla, the famous Russian genius. I did lots of experiments with Tesla, with electricity.
You did lots of experiments with Tesla, huh, Kent? I feel like he was dead before you were born, but
They
what do
were-
I know?
They were on a plane sitting next to one another. The
You know what,
professor
that's-
on one side, and then
And Nikolai Tesla on the other.
Tesla on the other side.
I'm going to count this as a story that didn't happen because I'm very confident that Kent never did any experiments with Nikolai Tesla. That also means it's time for me to open my second bottle. And
So you took 15 drinks to drink one bottle.
Yeah.
That's good portion control.
yeah, well, like I said, I'm not taking like gigantic gulps.
And yes, Moody's right. He did say Nikolai instead of Nikola Tesla. He tends to do that.
You know what, Nick? Yeah. Oh yeah,
Couldn't
he was
hear his
Serbian.
name very well because the plane was loud.
Yeah, as the
And the professor
non-binary
wouldn't stop talking. So.
wouldn't stop talking about the Big Bang spinning out of a nebula or something somehow. And as the Venerable Bee points out, I'm sorry. Oh, well, first Mothra. Sorry, Bee. Forgot that you changed your name on YouTube. As the non-binary Bee points out, Nikola Tesla was in fact Serbian, not Russian. Although I feel like Kent just lumps any former Soviet bloc country, except maybe East Germany, under just like the category of Russia.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, oh my goodness, there's another Mothra. What is going on today? All right, here we go.
Tesla was in competition with Thomas Edison, and Chuck can tell you all about this stuff. He knows a lot more about that than I do, but Chuck Holcomb.
I'll ask
Thomas-
Chuck afterwards. Can you get to a point instead, please?
Also, remember, we're talking about Niagara Falls, and here we're on just a complete diversion to the Edison versus Tesla period of
every topic is a diversion. Every topic is just another diversion.
Does it count as a prediction if I say that the Nikola Tesla Thomas Edison conflict never ties back in directly to the Niagara Falls thing? Is that
Yeah.
a prediction? Okay,
That's a prediction.
Edison was just convinced we should use direct current, DC current like your car has, 12-volt DC current. Tesla said, no, we should use alternating current.
Wasn't it the other way around? I don't remember, honestly. Direct current is dumb for power transmission. I'll just say that.
For long
the
range
advantage-
power transmission.
Direct current is a bad idea. It's costlier to use DC generators. It's costlier to transmit. It's more dangerous to transmit.
It's just not easy to transmit.
No, yes, it's harder. More
I don't even know how
dangerous.
far you can transmit it.
I mean, as long as you have a solid copper wire, as far as you want. But like, you can't do isolation transformers. You just have to direct solid copper connection.
Just use AC.
Yeah,
Just
it's
let the electricians handle it.
The advantage of alternating current is you can send it farther. DC current, the farther it goes, the weaker it gets.
My
Yeah,
goodness.
DC does not have a limitless range.
So
I
I'll take
think
a drink.
he's right. It doesn't have a limitless
So
range.
he's kind of right, but what he's actually just saying is wires have resistance, which, yeah, AC has to worry about that too. It's just that the nice thing about AC is that you can do things like have isolation and step down transformers, so that rather than having to use your straight, I'm going to use the USA as an example, 120 volts right out of your generator, you can do stuff like ultra high voltage way up in power transmission lines, which you then use isolation transformers to prevent, system-wide failures, and then you use step-down transformers to get it down to the 120 volts that you need out of your wall socket. So technically, you can send DC as far as you want. It's just that it comes with a whole bunch of problems. But yeah, DC is dumb. Kent is kind of right about that, and he's kind of right that there's a limit as to how far you can transmit it if you're trying to transmit it at useful voltages. I mean, if you're willing to go to super high DC voltages, you can transmit it super far. But that's dangerous for many, many reasons.
You got a wire from here to, New Orleans, and there's nothing coming out the other end. Okay, it's too much resistance within the wire. But with alternating current, you can get high voltage and send it further. So,
Oh, yeah, okay. It was... Yeah, basically, Kent.
Obviously, Tesla won out, and we use alternating current everywhere. But the Niagara Falls was eroding back until 1930s when they...
Yep, never went anywhere. That's a correct prediction. While talking about the erosion of Niagara Falls, let's just take a minute to talk about the benefits of alternating versus direct current, because that's a thing that matters.
Built this hydroelectric power plant. So now they have greatly decreased the erosion rate. Plus, they have a vested interest, all the stores that own...
Also, by the way, guys, let's put F's in the chat for Paleologos' attempts at recording videos. Apparently, he had 2 attempts at taping, and first out of focus, then the battery died halfway through filming without noticing. That's rough. That's a rough day. So, guys, if you could put F's in the chat for Peter there, that would be much appreciated, because, my goodness, that is not a fun day right there. Yeah, I've had days like that.
Property next to that, all the hotels, they want people to look out the window and see the falls. If they build their $3 million hotel and then the Niagara Falls moves 30 feet, they're going to go build another hotel up there and they're going to get all the business, okay? So there's a vested interest for people to actually do repairs to the falls. They may shut it off for 2 weeks, go out there and, spread some cement to fill in the cracks and keep this erosion from happening again.
I have no idea if there are actually people spreading cement at Niagara Falls. It doesn't matter as far as I can tell, but okay.
Still waiting for a point from Kent. It's been like 36 minutes. There's not one yet.
Okay, but to be fair, for his audience, it's been significantly less time than that.
But they did have a 5-minute break that we didn't have.
True.
Bottom line is, until man got involved, it was eroding back 4.7 feet a year. Charles Lyell hated the Bible. He's the guy...
Charles Lyell, lifetime devout Christian, hated the Bible, taking a drink.
Did he just switch topics again? Or is
no,
he
I think this will come
he's
back.
Going to relate this?
I think he's going to relate it, because Charles Lyell was the guy who basically came up with the idea of uniformitarianism. I think he's going to tie measurements of the erosion rate to uniformitarianism, which was first really introduced by Charles Lyell. That's my prediction as to where this is going to
be. That strongly influenced Charles Darwin. We'll get into more of that later, but Lyell's a name you got to watch. Charlie Lyell wrote this book, Principles of Geology. He was looking desperately for some way to prove the Earth is more than 6,000 years old, because he just wanted to discredit the Bible so badly. He
didn't. In fact, what he wanted to do was to remove the idea that the Bible, interpretations of the Bible should have sway over how geology is done. But again, as a lifelong, devout, believing Christian, he in no way wanted to just get rid of the Bible. Also, Kerry Bronson, who's been a member for 17 months at the Amiot level, says he literally just explained the reason that his use of the falls as a clock doesn't work. Yeah. Kent?
Yeah, but he doesn't realize that. So.
Yeah, the theme of tonight has basically been Kent saying, oh, hey, this proves a young Earth. Now let me tell you why that's stupid before I move on to the next reason that we have a young Earth. Like, oh, okay, sure.
Had an ulterior motive, okay? He was a lawyer from Scotland. And he probably had a political reason. Because the Bible says to honor the king. And there were people during this time frame who were wanting to get rid of the king. Overthrow monarchy.
I mean, the Bible also says that kings are a bad idea because they'll send your sons to war and levy taxes. Basically, the entire point of, what is it, first...
There's a lot of things the Bible says. To honor the king is, I guess, one of them.
It's in there.
Another long story there, but Charles Lyell went to Niagara Falls in 1841.
Skip it.
When he went there, Niagara Falls was here.
Okay.
It obviously started right here where the cliff is. And it's obviously moving back down the gully. It's eating its way backwards, okay? My son-in-law, Paul Jewell, is from the town of Lewiston, which is off here to the left, right under the picture of the book. That's where he was born and raised. His dad
pastored a church. Why don't you give us his
of...
full phone number and address? I'm a little surprised that you only gave his first and last name.
Can we have his social security number too and his mom's maiden name?
Right.
In case.
There. I've been there to the Niagara Falls area several times.
Not great at doxing yet.
Well,
he tried.
Yeah, he tried.
Down on the lower side, down near Lewiston, they've got quite an interesting park you might want to go see. Today, Niagara Falls is clear back where that yellow arrow is. It is split over that island. Can you see that island in the middle of the river? It has caused there to be two Niagara Falls, the American side and the Canadian side. This is a huge fiberglass map. John, you got to make one of these here one of these days. This is a fiberglass 3D, section of Niagara Falls. It's fascinating. But you can see there in the center of the river, there's an island called Goat Island.
Okay.
And the water splits and goes over both sides. So the one on the upper part is called the American Falls, and the lower part is called the Canadian Falls, because the border goes right down the middle of Goat Island.
Yep. Again, by treaty. So, okay.
But from where it started at the edge of the cliff, the falls have moved back 7.5 miles. And you can go up there and study for yourself.
Could have just said that sentence at the beginning and saved us 20 minutes of nonsense.
Oh, look.
This is the point that I've been waiting for so long.
We're finally getting to the point where he says erosion rate times time equals age of falls.
I don't even care if it's a good point, a bad point. It's just a point. He's making a declarative sentence that is just rambling.
Yeah.
That's correct, 7.5 miles. Well, there's the two falls there, the American Falls on the left and the Canadian Falls, which is much more pretty, on the right.
Go Canada, I guess.
Most people take the bridge across and go see the Canadian Falls, and they've got spotlights and they light them up. And they do
if you look at the poll, I think most people have never been there.
That's true. Yeah, right now, well, we might as well close it at this point.
What's wrong on that?
But yeah, it looks like 69% nice have not been to the falls. Oh wait, no, it changed since I was looking at it. 66% said no, 33. Darn it, guys!
Stop the vote!
Fancy things with the falls. There have been a couple times where they've frozen.
Oh, fun. Kent, you were so close to a point. Damn it, just get there. I believe in you. I don't know why, but I do.
And pretty cool when you see the Niagara Falls frozen, and
yeah,
that's pretty unusual for that to happen. But the Niagara Falls goes down into this river, this gorge, where the water's just going like crazy through there. They take boat trips up there. They've got a boat with a jet engine on it.
Yeah, we know that's where Jim and Pam got married.
We saw it. We saw the episode. Come on.
Get to the.
Oh my God. Maybe they hadn't filmed it yet.
And you pay, $30 or whatever to get on that thing. And they go up through these rapids, or you can go raft trips down there. This really phenomenal, ice cold water, okay? But this textbook here says, the gorge is about 7.5 miles long, and it runs just below Niagara Falls. That is correct.
Oh, good.
Then the textbook says, a simple calculation shows it has been 9,900 years. Wait.
Young Earth disproven, got it.
7.5 miles, 9,900 years. That is not correct. If you do the math on it, it's moving back 4.7 feet a year.
I think they did the math on it and they came up with 9,900 years.
Yeah. Well, so let's do the math on it real quick here, right? So it's 7.5 miles.
Doing any math. Oh.
So that is 39,600 feet. We're using feet because Kent's using. Okay, so that's how many miles. And he said it's moving back. We're going to rewind just a second to see how far back he said it was going.
8,400 years. 9,900 years. That is not correct. If you do the math on it, it's moving back 4.7 feet a year.
Okay, 4.7. So we'll divide that by 4.7.
Where's he getting 4.7 from?
I'm just taking his word for it.
Is he getting that from the 9,900?
I don't know. But yeah, it does come out to 8,400 years. So, yeah. That's nice, Ken.
That's only 8,400 years.
It's a little bit more, but also, Ken, that's still older than you think the universe is, so I'm not sure why you're bothering to nitpick over this tiny little quibble of like was it 1.5 thousand years, when we're already well past how old you think the universe is. Kind of a problem.
Charles Lyell is the one who said it was about 10,000 years old.
Yeah. Look,
Okay.
And you're off by like 20% in like the 1700s
That's-
estimating a waterfall. That's not that bad.
Saying it's about 10,000 years old is exactly the same as 9,900 and basically exactly the same as 8,500.
Yeah, that sounds like a good estimate to me.
Especially if it's higher than 6,000. Which I said I wouldn't do math, but I will do this.
Uh-oh. You go
8,500 greater than sign 6,000.
do greater than, less than with real numbers, huh?
I won't do less than.
Oh, okay, just greater than.
Just greater than, just the one time.
He made up that number based on a much lower erosion rate because he wanted to discredit the Bible.
But Kent, according to you, the actual erosion rate already does that. And no, he didn't. Because again, lifelong devout Christian. We're just going to take a drink for lying about it. Yeah.
It's like
He's the
in more dimensions than I can count.
one who said Niagara Falls is 10,000 years old. And then people said, well, hey, the Earth is millions of years old. How can the falls be only 10,000?
Okay.
Who's ever asked that question?
Maybe
Maybe someone's asked that question. I've never asked that question.
Let's talk about how that works. Some of you might know that the Earth is this thing called dynamic, right? That means it moves, changes, and
What's that mean?
Yeah, it means that things are not always the same on Earth. Which means a new feature of the Earth can appear after the Earth has already existed before that.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's sort of like, you ever gotten a pimple?
Yeah.
Were you older than the pimple, or did the pimple come right as you began to exist every time?
No, I was older.
Yeah. Yeah, that's because your body is dynamic.
Every time.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's because your body is dynamic, and chances are you weren't born with any infected pores.
Are you saying time is real?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, time is real.
What?
Yeah, it's this whole big complicated thing, but yeah, time turns out
crazy.
Real thing. Yeah.
And he said, well, this proves there was an ice age 10,000 years ago.
On its own, no. However, the Niagara Falls is around an area where, that was covered in glaciers during the Ice Age, which, by the way, young Earth creationists largely believe that there was an Ice Age. They think there was only one and it happened shortly after the flood, but, yeah. But also, it is probably the case that Niagara Falls didn't start eroding that channel until after the Ice Age. I mean, it does happen to fit in with all the other evidence of an Ice Age, Ice Age fauna, like frozen mammoths, or all those stones picked up and moved by glaciers, or all the evidence of glacial erosion, or just the very fact that areas like Ontario, Quebec, New England currently experience occasional earthquakes because the Earth is actually still popping up after the retreat of the glaciers, which pushed it down farther into the mantle than before. I've only actually felt one earthquake.
That sounds painful.
Yeah. I've only ever felt one earthquake, noticed an earthquake once in my life. And it was in Massachusetts. Most people don't think of Massachusetts as a place that gets earthquakes. It does. But not because there's a fault line. Because the rock is actually, sometimes it buckles as it's popping back up after having a glacier go over it, pushing it down, and since retreat. Yeah.
And the topography of the Earth was different, and as the ice melted back, it was ice melt that caused this Niagara Falls to erode this gully.
Okay.
So they date the Ice Age based on Charles Lyell's estimate.
No, Kent. I can guarantee you that no one today is dating the most recent glacial maximum on the basis of Charles Lyell's initial rough estimate. Oh, and there's Godzilla.
It's just that, Kent has to know that's not how science works.
Oh, yeah.
That they don't pretend what a guy wrote a few hundred years ago is scripture and treat it as infallible. He has to know that's not how science works.
But
he still pretends like it's revealed knowledge or something like that.
We took 2 drinks, by the way. One for Kent saying something so stupid, and one for Godzilla. Of course, we always drink for Godzilla.
That Niagara Falls is 10,000 years old. That's how they come up with that number.
No.
Now here's
Has he demonstrated yet why he doesn't think it's even 8,500 yet? Because I think he's already said that. It seems like he made that clear.
I'm not even
8,500 greater than 6,000, so...
Yeah, it's already a problem for his worldview.
It's going to be on the quiz next week. 8,500 greater than 6,000.
It's right there. The river is flowing north, okay, into Lake Ontario. Niagara Falls obviously started eroding up here in Lewiston, where that cliff is. It's called the escarpment. Okay, it is moving back down the gully, the river.
Okay.
If the Earth is billions of years old, why hasn't it moved back to Lake Erie by now?
Because it didn't start when the Earth did. Next question.
Dumb question. Next question.
We'll take a drink for how dumb that question. Not every process has to start at the beginning of the world, Kent. Some things can start after that.
Most things started after that.
Yes, virtually
almost
everything.
all of them.
Clear to California, you know. Why is Niagara Falls right there?
Why is anything anywhere? Because at some point a process started, and it's only gotten this far, and that's where it is. It's like asking, like, how come Mount Everest isn't taller? I don't know, because it's only gotten as tall as it has. A process
maybe
of
one
mountain
day
building
it'll
started.
grow.
It's
It'll
growing
grow
right
tall
now.
enough. Yeah, but maybe it'll grow tall enough to be considered taller, according to whoever was asking that question.
There you go.
Because it is taller all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What, like an inch a year or something like that? I don't know.
I don't actually know, yeah. I would have to look that up.
Well, about 6,000 years ago, God made everything. 4,400 years.
Okay,
yeah, but what about the 8,500 years ago thing that you said that you believed by running the numbers?
Years
you
ago,
said
there was
you did the math and Dapper confirmed the math. I didn't.
A big flood. A guy named Noah built a big boat, saved all the critters. After the flood was over, the waters
He saved all the critters except for the coral, who mysteriously survived with no explanation.
Running off. Psalm 104 says the mountains arose, the valleys sank down, the water rushed off. Read Psalm 104. And
okay, let's read Psalm 104 real quick. He asked us to. But is this 104 in the Protestant count, or is it 104 in the Orthodox count? It's
going to be the Protestant.
Yeah.
And at least he didn't call it chapter.
That's a good point. Okay. The mountains. Okay, let's see.
Oh, you have to do the King James version, otherwise it doesn't count.
Okay, I will switch it to the King James version. That's fair. It's not in like alphabet. There it is. Okay, King James. We're on BibleGateway.com, by the way. That's my go-to for just finding a Bible verse. Okay, here we go. So this is Psalm 104. Who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers of flaming fire. I'm starting verse 4. Who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. Thou coveredest the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hasted away. They go up by the mountains, they go down by the valleys, unto the place which thou hast founded them. Thou hast set a bound, they may not pass, that they turn not again to cover the earth. Okay, yeah, so actually, I do think that is about the flood, so I'll give them that. At first I thought maybe it was actually about the creation myth, where the earth starts as like formless and covered in water, and then God raises up the land, and then the waters retreat from the land. But it actually does when it says they turn not again to cover the earth. I think that might actually be about the flood, but it could still be about the creation. It's a little ambiguous, but I'm willing to give.
I didn't get flood story from that.
I didn't mostly.
What do I know? But that's not what I got from that.
I'm just like, I can see why he would say that that's what that means, and I'm not gonna say like that's can't count.
Very fair.
Which, you know what? Almost every time we ever check on a Bible verse that Kent gives, it doesn't talk about what he says it's talking about. So with this one, where it's like, maybe I'm willing to give it to him, because my goodness, he gets the Bible wrong so often.
He might get it right every once in a while.
Yeah. I mean, it is allegedly his favorite book. You'd think he would get it right sometimes.
Half of that gully washed out the first 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. So that means that the Niagara Falls Gully is smooth-sided in terms of the channel shape, as well as doesn't have any sharp turns in the channel, except that you already showed us a 3D model of the gully that doesn't in fact have nearly 180-degree switchbacks, and it has a steep-sided gully. So the great thing about spillways, right, is Kent Hovind has a dam break video on his official YouTube channel that you can watch. Breaks a dam on his property, and you can watch the spillway be formed. It's a smooth channel, no switchback erosion feature that doesn't look at all like the Niagara Falls Gully. Surprise, surprise! Thank you for
Saying
doing
that,
the
like-
experiment yourself, Kent.
Like flowing water has things like inertia or momentum.
Mhm. Both.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, I know. Who would have ever thought?
Not
You can see
Kent.
Yeah, apparently not.
After a good rainstorm, where the water's running off, it'll eat backwards into the dirt a long ways. You know, the pond we've got out here for drainage, we had to put in a concrete spillway because the water kept eroding the dirt back so fast. One good rainstorm, and man, you can lose 15 feet of dirt, you know?
Yes, in a smooth spillway. Not at all like the Niagara Falls channel.
So Niagara Falls looks like it's 9,900 years old.
Mhm.
They forgot the flood.
No, we're just you can take a drink. They didn't forget the flood, Kent. There was no evidence of a flood, so they didn't include it.
That's what formed 80% of it. And even then, they forgot to get the right number. You used the right mathematics. It should have been 8,400 years, not 9,900 years. But
I'm just going to point out again that when actual geologists do things like this for real, they take into account differences in which rocks are around. So if Niagara Falls had to erode harder rocks earlier in its existence, it would have been slower, and that would be taken into account. Now, I don't know what all the calculations are. I don't particularly care how old Niagara Falls is, because it doesn't really matter. Because, as we said, processes can start after the Earth was formed. That doesn't invalidate the idea that the Earth is older. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that Charles Lyell knew better than to just use a linear regression. And that, in fact, he probably had other factors into it that would change the erosion rate
He
at
had-
various times.
A lot of time to work on it.
That's true.
He didn't have YouTube to get distracted.
He had like 13.8 billion years to work on it.
Something like that.
their 9,900 is based on Charles Lyell's estimate, which was a bold-faced lie to try to discredit the Bible.
Wow.
I
Kent,
feel like that's just not true at all.
well, I'll say this. Kent, maybe be careful when you're accusing other people of lying. Just gonna put that out there. Mr.
Good
Oh, that
advice.
wasn't a gun, that was a penis. Actual Kent Hovind thing.
The known erosion rate is 4.7 feet a year. Okay, who cares?
Well, then why are you talking if no one cares?
When it
All
rains,
this was for nothing?
Yeah, apparently.
No.
Oh, okay. So Peter grew up in a church where it was extremely improper to read anything with the KJV. You had to pray with the these and thous. My dad was the minister and got kicked out because he criticized the legalism. You know, interestingly, my dad also left a church because he was on the no, it's okay to read other Bible translations than the KJV side of a controversy like that. That church actually split, and Splinter Group went off and formed their own church, which didn't last all that long. It was like a couple of years, and then like it wasn't financially viable anymore, so they just kind of dissolved and all went to various other churches that weren't KJV only. But yeah, that was a thing that happened in my family too. It's weird.
Is so bafflingly dumb.
It really is.
Bafflingly stupid.
Yeah, it gets even worse if you actually dig into things like the Gail Ripplinger New Age Bible translations that a lot of the KJV only, like really big boosters, think is a valid book, where God told Gail Ripplinger that all the other Bible translations were from Satan, and also she got it was like the English Standard Bible. In her book, she calls it the English Standard Version, which isn't a thing.
Uh-oh.
And so when asked about that, she said, "Oh, well, that's what God calls it in heaven. God has his own pet name for the English Standard Bible in heaven, and he told Gail Ripplinger to use it."
Okay.
If that was her actual response.
I'm out of drink. I can't keep drinking for things that are so stupid.
Well, to be fair, technically Kent didn't say it, so it doesn't technically count as something we should drink.
Yeah, but my brain's hearing it.
True.
It still hurts just as bad.
Actually, you know what? I think it's time to take a quick break. So, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to go on a quick intermission. I'm going to get myself another couple bottles. And guys, stick with me. When we come back, a quick commercial. I'll remind everyone that there's a new drink trigger if you want to participate in that. And we'll be back at it. So I will see you guys in a few minutes. Okay, and we are back. Sorry it took a little bit longer. We had to get some tea brewed and also to check on one of the doggies because one of the doggies has an inflamed right eye, and there's a lot of washing it with saline solution and whatnot. She hates, but
It's getting better, I think,
I
though.
think so too. Yeah. I've seen less mucus. I've seen less of her trying to rub her eyelids against.
Holding it shut.
Yeah. Look, she's an old lady. She's having a rough time sometimes. Still a good dog.
She's the best good girl.
Is.
The best
Okay,
good girl.
so real quick, guys. As you guys know, there are various ways to support the channel. If that's something you want to do, there is the Patreon down in the description, where you can pledge as little as $1 a month, or all the way up to like $100 a month, or I guess more if you really are crazy. That includes access to the supporter Patreon or not Patreon, supporter Discord, and it's probably the cheapest way if you go annual, because 12% discount for annual. There's also the channel memberships that gives you access to the same Patreon, or sorry, same Discord, as well as the various channel emojis, the badge that comes with being a member. There's also a merch store, where if you want to buy like a mug or a T-shirt or that blanket that you can see in the background, yeah,
really high quality.
I was surprised.
It really is, and it will never. That will never fade. How do they? I don't know how they print it, but like it's never gonna fade.
Yeah, it's been washed so many times, and I mean, to be frank, it's been peed on by dogs a number of times, and it's still looking great. So there's that. And yeah, it always helps out a lot, especially since there's recently been a couple unexpected expenses here at Casa Dino that would help with. But of course, if that's not your thing, if an annual thing isn't something you want to do or you can't afford it, then don't. Please just like the video, share it around. But also, I want to remind everyone that there is a new drink trigger today, which is if you gift subscribers memberships to the channel, which go to randomly selected individuals in chat, we will take a drink for that. I believe that starts at I think the $5 because I think it automatically gives you a $5 level subscription. So that lasts for a month. You get if you're gifted a subscription, you get all the benefits that come with being at that level. And that includes access to the special member and patron only Discord server where we hang out a lot. In fact, we have a pretty nice community, I think, going there. Like, we just recently started arranging a D&D game for people that were interested on the Discord server. We have, after these Tuesday night things, we usually like watch a movie or some TV or something together in Discord. It's by far the most reliable way to get a hold of me because I almost always have that Discord pulled up. So it's a lot of fun. And yeah, as Shipfish said, I mean, there's D&D. I mean, come on. We have gaming channels. We have regular old voice channels. We have a specific D&D channel with a max membership of 7 individuals at a time. So that way, you have full campaign in there, and then that's it. You can't just have randos drop in during campaign time. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So if that's something you want to do, go ahead. But anyway, we're going to get on with Kent Hovind here.
30% of the water runs into the ocean. The rest of it evaporates or soaks into the ground, becomes part of the water table. But on average, around the world, about 30% is going to run into the ocean.
I have no idea if that's the right number, but I don't care to contest it.
As it runs in, it brings with it what are called mineral salts. Okay. There are all kinds of salts in the ground, mineral salts they're called, and they are being washed out into the ocean by the rivers. It's a known fact. Nobody argues about it. It's no big deal.
Correct. We'll take a drink for Kent being correct.
I argued about it.
Well, today the oceans are
I learned that differently, and I argued about that once.
Oh.
I think at a Kent with Bent.
I mean...
Because I learned from a cooking expert that all sea salt or all salt comes from the ocean.
Well,
so
it might... Yeah. I think all salt that you're eating ultimately derives from sea salt, but the salt itself got there from much lower concentrations in rivers. So it's like, sure, you could dry out
I don't understand how it works, but that is how I had learned, and that is not what Ken's saying.
What Kent is saying is broadly true.
And what Ken is saying is broadly true.
I would
That's so
not
weird.
trust.
I hate when I'm wrong and Kent's right on something.
It happens extremely
Makes me feel
rarely.
gross. I mean, like, I'm not wrong now. I just remembered the last time it happened.
0.6% salt. They're gaining salt every day. They could have gone from nothing to 3.6% in less than 5,000 years.
Interestingly enough, this argument comes from Scientific Creationism by Henry Morris. I happen to own that book, and the page that I have bookmarked in it is the table where Henry Morris goes through salt accumulation times based on current rates of salt being washed into the ocean. We're going to read a super chat and get into that. Steve Marino for 5 USD says, please confirm that poor doggo cannot hear Kent right now. I don't believe she can.
She cannot. I
Although
would not put her through that.
She is better at hearing than we are, so I don't think she can, but if she can, it's through our ear.
Yeah, if she can hear it through my earbuds, then I apologize, because she deserves
Sorry,
better
girl.
than that.
I don't even know where she is.
Right here.
Aww.
Resting. Hi,
There
doggy.
she is.
Hi, how are you?
Aw, look at what a good
I
girl.
don't know if she's visible.
Barely visible.
She's not that tall.
No, she's a very small doggy. All right. Well, now that we've had a good doggy welfare check, we know that, yes, doggy is not in danger of having her brain damaged by Kent Hovind. So anyway, the fun thing about this is that one of the salts is an aluminum salt that Henry Morris tracks. And the accumulation time for aluminum is 100 years. So if we're going to use salt accumulation, according to Henry Morris, which is where Kent is ultimately getting this from, then it can only be 100 years old. Or, this is big or maybe there's a way that salt can be removed from the ocean by things like having chemical interactions with other chemicals either in the water or in sediments, or by things like being subducted under crustal plates, which then ends up forming chemical bonds with things like magma.
Like chemistry things are still happening right now?
In the ocean.
That's
and
crazy.
Under the crust. Yeah,
wow.
Weird. It's
That's
almost
crazy.
like,
I guess time is real.
Yeah.
It does keep passing.
What's actually happening when you do this, how much salt is in the ocean now, how much of that salt washes into the ocean worldwide per annum, and then you just do the math to see how salty the ocean could have gotten that time. What you're actually doing is just figuring out the average stay time for a single salt ion of that kind. On average, aluminum salts spend about a century in the ocean before they're removed. Other salts, maybe it's 5,000 years. That's all you're actually calculating is the average stay times.
Now, there are all kinds of indicators here that you can look up on creationscience.com or icr.org. They have taken studies of each of the different salts, and they'll say how much of this particular salt.
By the way, ICR is the foundation that Henry Morris created, and they're the ones that say that, aluminum salts could have gotten that way in 100 years, and that's how we should date the Earth. So,
I wasn't alive 100 years ago. I don't know. Maybe the Earth did form then.
Well, I was.
I remain unconvinced, though.
Sodium chloride is in the ocean, and how much comes in every year, and they get a number of maybe 100,000 years. They'll take a different salt, one of the potassium salts, and say, oh, well, this one took, we got 300,000 years worth. So you're going to get different numbers based upon which type of salt you're doing this with.
Once again, Kent Hovind gives us a way to tell the Earth is young, and then immediately tells us why it's a dumb way to do it. So we're taking a drink for that happening once again. Yet, if this were a validating method, then all of your different checks should align. Right? All of them should converge on a single age for the Earth, if this were a good way to measure the age of the Earth.
And how much is coming into the ocean. Of course, you got to realize, looking at today's salt increase is going to be a really rough estimate.
Yeah, you can say that.
You may have had a whole lot more wash in the first 5 years after the flood was over as the ground is drying out.
Of course. Except that the Earth isn't just covered in runoff channels.
I'm sure that's what the scientists forgot to consider.
I love it. Every time Kent proposes a dating method, he points out that it doesn't work. He's just like, oh, but the flood can make it work. Hand wave.
Like the whole Grand Canyon. How could the Grand Canyon form without a global flood? Why aren't there Grand Canyons all over the Earth if it's the global flood that caused it?
There should be, if that's what caused it, yeah.
There may have been a whole lot more salts on the ground for various reasons. But it's a simple fact. Most of the salts in the ocean could have accumulated in less than 5,000 years.
No, it's a simple fact that most salts in the ocean have a less than 5,000 year stay time.
So, why aren't the oceans saltier?
Because salt is removed. That's literally the entire answer.
Because salt.
Has anybody ever been to a Great Salt Lake or the...
Yes. Oh wait, no, that's a question for everyone. Okay.
I've been to a Great Lake, but not a Great Salt Lake.
Oh, you haven't been to the Salt Lake in Utah? It's nice. I mean, if you like salt and lakes and Utah.
I like
Have
salt in my
you
foods,
been
not in my
to the-
lakes.
Capitalize.
Well, maybe I would.
Great
I don't know.
Salt Lake in Utah. Yeah, I went to it one of the times that I worked in Salt Lake City. It was one of the times that I didn't go to, like, just look around the temple grounds. Which, I mean, the grounds are really nice. They have nice groundskeeping, and they have little, like, sort of like museum displays and little various like out locations. Of course, you can't go in unless you have a temple recommend card, and I'm not a Mormon, so there's no chance of me getting a temple recommend card. But I also really like the streets in Salt Lake City because they're extremely wide, and that was because Brigham Young apparently wanted horse or oxen-drawn carriages to be able, or carts, to be able to make a full 180 U-turn in the middle of the streets. And as a result, he just made absurdly wide streets. So now a lot of the streets have like center divider parking where you can just turn to the left, like a little diagonal parking space. Just park in the street. Very convenient.
I've never been there, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, of course. Also, it has really bad pollution because part of being near a salt lake is it's actually in a local depression. All the water drains into the salt lake there because it's in a depression around the mountains, which also means that air pollution has nowhere to go. So air quality around Salt Lake City can be kind of bad. Factories there that the pollution just stays. So I like certain parts of being in Salt Lake City. I dislike certain other parts of being in Salt Lake City. Although it definitely wasn't as hard to get a drink as you might have thought being in the very literal, well, not literal, in the very figurative heart of Mormon country. Actually pretty easy to get a drink.
Dead Sea in Israel.
We already asked about the Great Salt Lake. The Dead Sea is a similar phenomenon.
I was at the Dead Sea over there, and they said, don't get any water in your mouth.
Yeah, that's probably good advice.
Well, I took off swimming. I was a lifeguard, and I got one drop of water in my mouth. It is 30% salt.
I don't know if that's true, but my goodness, that's a lot of salt.
That is a lot.
I tasted that for 3 days. I couldn't get that taste. It was horrible.
Yeah, I'll bet it
I've
was.
got some of the Dead Sea water. It's up on Jonathan's desk. It's a Coke bottle full of Dead Sea water. Is it up there, Heath, by your desk? You seen that? You should feel that next to a bottle of regular water. It is just like, golly, it feels like lead. It is so heavy.
I bet it feels like salt water.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is going to be heavier, right? Because the salt is going to be more dense than the water and that it's displacing, so.
Because it's so saturated in salts. Well, the water is so heavy, when you go swimming in it, you float real high.
Hey, you know what? That's true. Take a drink. We'll go into a quick buoyancy lesson, and then... So the factors important for buoyancy are the weight of the object displacing the water, or the liquid. Actually, fluid, I guess, technically. So the weight of the object displacing fluid, the volume of fluid displaced, and the density of the fluid, as well as, of course, the acceleration due to gravity. But since we're staying on Earth, that's always going to be the approximately 9.8 meters per second squared. So if you increase the density of the fluid being displaced by adding salt in the case of salt water, increase the buoyant force felt by the object. Now, technically, the mass of the object doesn't matter in terms of how much buoyant force is applied, but it does matter in terms of whether it sinks or rises and how quickly it does that. Because the force, affects the mass to give you the acceleration. Math, right? So if you increase the density of the fluid displaced, you increase the buoyant force, which means it's harder for objects of a given density to sink, buoyed up more strongly. So as you increase salt, you increase the buoyant force on your body, which means you rise up higher in that liquid. It's one of the reasons why, if you're in one of those sensory deprivation chambers, that water is actually pretty darn salty. It's to give you a really high buoyant force, so that you're not in danger of sinking. Because if you're trying to be sensory deprived, but you're constantly worried about having your mouth and nose go underwater and breathing in water, well, it's going to be pretty hard to relax and do the whole sensory deprivation thing. That's why they do salt water in those. Which, interestingly, is something they got right in the most recent season of Stranger Things, where they were like, "Oh, we need a whole bunch of salt for the makeshift sensory deprivation tank." That's why they went to like the pizzeria, is because they had like 50-pound bags of salt they could just dump into a pizza freezer. So, yeah.
Great Salt Lake in Utah is not quite as salty, but almost. Okay, it's real salty too. Everything washes in. There's no outlet to the Great Salt Lake. Everything evaporates out. There is no spillway.
Correct. Take a drink there. And as the non-binary beat points out, it is in fact shrinking in volume as time goes on, thanks to climate change. And also, there's arsenic in there, which will be exposed to the air, which if you think pollution is bad in Salt Lake City now, just wait till the lake dries up and all that arsenic is just on the surface of the ground.
Once in a while they get a bad snow or bad rain and it fills up goes up over the expressway. The interstate has to be shut down around Great Salt Lake till the water evaporates back down. Who cares? Well,
I mean, the Salt Lake City residents care, but...
Why does he say that?
Oh, it's because that's his way of saying, but I digress, and getting back on topic.
He doesn't have a topic, though.
Well, he's trying to say that this is about the age of the Earth.
I got a postcard. I had a postcard one time years ago when I was a kid. We went out there to Great Salt Lake and went swimming in the Great Salt Lake. And as soon as you dive in, you will discover every scratch on your body. It will start screaming at you. Put salt in a wound and you know what I'm talking about. I forgot I had that scratch right there.
Okay,
you will instantly be reminded of any cuts on your body because of the salt there. But we got this postcard of 4 guys playing cards in the Great Salt Lake. They got a card table that's floating just about that far out of the water. And they're sitting in their chairs. You can see the back of the chair, and the guys are about this, this deep in water, and they're sitting there playing cards. Because the water is so heavy, you float really high. Mm-hmm. The buoyancy is real high. Well, the Dead Sea is the same way, and the Salton Sea down in Southern California.
Holy crap, Ken, are you just going to name every single body of water that doesn't have an outlet to the ocean?
And say therefore 6,000 years.
Oh, I'm taking a drink just because, how... They're all, we get it, all of them accumulate salt.
How far are you from the Salton Sea?
Who cares, Kent?
5 hours from it.
Okay, 4 or 5 hours, yeah.
By the way, 4 or 5 hours is considered to be a relatively modest drive in the United States. I know I have a lot of European viewers for whom that's like a gigantic thing, but out here, 4 or 5 hours is considered to be that's not that far. Mostly because,
like 4 or 5 hour drives.
I don't like them, but that's not a crazy amount to drive. Whereas in Europe, if you drive 4 or 5 hours, you probably cross at least 2 international borders.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Those, to my knowledge, are the 3 saltiest lakes on the Earth. Okay?
Cool.
They've done studies of the Dead Sea, how much water's coming in, and how much water's evaporating, how quickly is it adding salt.
It's like in Dumb and Dumber, when Lloyd's at the bar and Beth Jordan is talking about her ex-boyfriend, and she's like, you know what he did next? And he's like, no, and I don't care.
It really is
what
it really
are you
is like
talking
that.
about? Can you please get to point number 2?
My brain's gonna keep melting.
It's only a 2-hour show.
Oh. All right, just had a drink. Let's go.
Evaporation only takes out water, won't take the salt out. And they say it's probably about 11,000 years worth of salt there.
Okay, so actually that brings up an interesting point, which is evaporite deposits, right? Evaporite deposits are things like salt deposits that are the result of large bodies of water evaporating. And there are very large evaporite deposits in the middle of what Kent thinks are flood year deposits. So I am very curious to know how Kent accounts for gigantic salt deposits that are evaporites in the middle of a worldwide flood. Because if there's one thing that a worldwide flood doesn't sound like to me, it's the drying out of oceans. So I would love for Kent Hovind to address why there are things like salt mines. Why do salt mines even exist?
I can see why you would say that.
Yeah.
Dead Sea, about 11,000. Salt Lake, I don't know.
That also reminds me, you know, pink Himalayan salt? It's pink because of fossilized algae.
Nice.
You eat pink Himalayan salt, you're eating the billions of years old corpses of algae.
If it's ever been tested. That's a good, maybe somebody can find out for me.
Yeah, maybe.
But the oceans could easily have gathered all that salt in less than 5,000 years. You also have to understand, there are what are called salt plumes. If they dig down into the ground, sometimes they hit a huge ball of salt.
Maybe he's actually going to talk about it. He's talking about salt deposits right now. Although it sounds like he's accounting for salt via various tectonic activities, which there are tectonic activities that can result in a salt column, but not all salt deposits are made this way, so maybe not.
It'll be, you know, the size of Pensacola. I mean, like 15 miles across and thousands of feet thick of pure salt.
Okay.
You've seen those lava lamps, you know, where the stuff, you know, blurbs up in a big ball coming up with a stem hanging down behind it?
Yes, Kent, we've seen lava. Actually, you know what? Nope, we have to ask, because technically that's the...
Yeah.
Okay.
How'd the last poll go?
The last poll was 81% have not been to the Great Salt Lake. Have you seen a lava lamp? Here's the question, guys. I feel like most people should say yes to this one, but I don't know. It's a yes for me.
Just tell the truth.
Yeah, tell the truth. If you
I don't
haven't
care
seen
what the
a lava
answer
lamp.
is, as long as you're telling the truth.
Now, I want to say, I think this should be an in-person lava lamp. Like, if you've just seen a picture of or a video of a lava lamp, I'm going to say that doesn't count.
As the lava lamp, as stuff floats up. That's apparently what the salt did. There were layers of salt in the pre-flood world for who knows what reason.
And it melted and flowed up without dissolving while being inundated by water-laden sediment.
The miracle!
Yeah, I mean, that would be a miracle. But then again, I guess the flood is a miracle, so...
Yeah. It's a lot of miracles. It's more miracles than I can count.
Okay.
But the salt will start to plume up toward the top, and then it gets trapped and it hardens. There's a place outside of Longview, Texas, called Grand Saline. That was famous because in the old days, the farmers would go there and get salt for their animals. It was right on the surface. The salt plume broke the surface. Louisiana has dozens of these salt plumes, okay? And sometimes they have to dig.
Not the most, you know, geologically active area, so that's curious.
Dig down to get to them. We've got right here in the museum somewhere, is it over there, the salt crystals? They're square, huge halite crystals. Somebody sent me some. They're like this, you know, if you ever look at salt under the magnifying glass, it's always little cubes, okay? Well, they sent me some giant cubes from this place in Grand Saline, Texas. I called them, said, hey, we got a museum, you know, can I buy some salt samples? And they said, oh, we'll give them to you. You know, they go down there with semis and load them up, you know, 50 of those a day, semis full of salt with bulldozers as fast as you can pack it. It's just pure salt, you know.
Okay.
The slower it evaporates, the bigger the crystals get.
Okay, so it is evaporating. It's not just liquid salt bubbling up through the ground. Great, Kent, thanks. We'll take a drink for you just changing your mind completely on how these salt formations are coming about.
Hey, the things that he says doesn't matter. I don't know why you listen to that.
I want to say a special thank you because I'm currently using a Klingon branded wine glass that was purchased for me from my Amazon wishlist. I believe the person wants to mostly remain anonymous. I want to say thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Anonymous.
You guys are great. In fact, actually, my Discord server not that long ago was basically something like, "Oh, hey, you know, is there a way to like grab you like a pizza or something?" And I was like, "Well, you know, I can put food on my Amazon wishlist, so now I have a bunch of my favorite 2 times spicy chicken ramen packs and stuff like that. Nice, because I like my ramen really, really spicy. It was until I think this year the spiciest commercially available ramen. I love it. So I want to say thank you to all the people who have bought me things from my Amazon wishlist. It is never required and always appreciated.
So if something is really deep in the ground and evaporates very slowly, it's got time for the crystals to get really huge and beautiful. Mm-hmm. That's called accretion, the way crystals grow by a process called accretion, where they add... we do have a petrified clam here. You guys use this for demo purposes?
That was like a half an hour ago. Whatever.
Yes.
Get a big one from John. Show the kids. Oh wow, this is tough to see.
Yeah, get one of those ones that you think is a clam, but that's actually just an accretion, which is interesting because it's the word you're talking about, although it's in a different context.
Petrified clam. I don't see another one.
There should be.
Oh yeah, you do have a big one. Okay, petrified clam, closed position.
Less Than Lucid says, "Ha! Now I'm picturing Hylian salt lamps." Yeah, because Kent Hovind mispronounced Himalaya, which of course is the land where the Legend of Zelda takes place.
Spoilers. Oh wait,
is that a spoiler?
I don't know.
It's like, is it a spoiler that Game of Thrones takes place in Westeros? I don't think so.
What?
By the way, Star Wars takes place in a galaxy far, far away. Spoilers.
In space.
Yeah, in space.
Took place a long, long time ago.
Although technically, basically everything takes place in space, because where do you think Earth is? This is already a space show. You're on Spaceship Earth. Okay.
You got a really nice one here.
I'm gonna
Are these some of the ones we just got from that guy?
The one in your right hand is, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure where we got the other one.
I can't tell if those are actual bivalves or if those are brachiopods, because the video quality is...
Petrified
pretty
clam,
bad.
closed position. Took millions of years.
It actually looks like it's the open position, but what do I know? Video quality is still really...
Obviously.
Oh, I guess if that's the scene, then maybe it isn't the clip. I don't know.
How do we get off on that?
No one knows, Kent. No one ever knows.
I saw it. The salt in the ocean. Why aren't the oceans saltier? Well, because they're only...
Why would they be saltier?
Yeah, because Kent doesn't realize that there are ways to remove salt from the ocean. David B22585 says, "Does Journey to the Center of the Earth count as a space book / movie?" Yeah, because the Earth is in space. It's like if you did a movie called Journey to the Center of the Starship Enterprise, would that be a space movie? Yeah, because that's where the Enterprise
What about
is.
Journey to the Center of the Moon?
Yeah, because that's where the moon is.
Space.
The fact that there's other stuff between you and the actual hard vacuum of like interstellar space doesn't mean you're not in space.
400 years old. That's why they're not saltier. Now, what might have happened in the first few hundred years after the flood, there may have been some salt plumes that were exposed in the ocean, at the bottom of the ocean, in which case they're going to dissolve, real quickly.
Oh, okay, so this is how he accounts for the salt that would have taken too long to accumulate according to his ideas. Once again, don't worry about it. Things that are too old, the flood just took care of it. Maybe we should just add a drink for whenever Kent hand waves dismisses anything that completely debunks his ideas with, "Well, the flood did it." Take a drink for that. Although I do think it comes under the whole like things that just would otherwise make my brain melt.
I just want him to show the numbers and do the math and stop saying, I could fit in this 5,000 range, therefore...
I don't know that Kent can do math.
Well, he did teach it for 15 years, but if he doesn't know math, then maybe he doesn't know 15 is 15 and not like nothing.
Yeah.
The ones up on land in Longview, Texas, or Grand Saline, Texas, they're a long ways from the beach. The ones in Louisiana are not going to leach into the ocean. But these salt plumes appear all over the world. If there were some near the ocean or in the ocean, they would quickly dissolve. So the salt content of the ocean might have rapidly risen.
Killing all the freshwater and apparently all the oceanic animals that were in the ocean because apparently they weren't salt adapted. So we have more problems for the flood. Go on.
In the first few hundred years after the flood. And today
it's good to know that even after the flood, there would have been mass die-offs of essentially all oceanic life. I'm just going to take a drink for Kent Hovind's rescue device, resulting in basically complete ecological collapse. Also, DM Wing, thank you very much. DM Wing just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. So let's see. We'll take a quick drink for that.
5 drinks, right?
No. You know what? Screw it. We're going to do it. I'm going to take 4 more drinks.
No.
I'm
not going to recommend... I'm going to recommend against drinking 5 drinks for anyone who's drinking alcohol. That's just my personal opinion.
I just did, although they were slightly undersized, to be fair.
It's a dangerous thing at this point in a drinking game to try to drink 5 drinks.
Agreed. But
I've been there. That's why my limit's 0.
Robert Adsit was gifted a membership. Smitty was gifted a membership. TD Lane was gifted a membership. Colin Dietrich was gifted a membership, and Dragon Spartan 90 was gifted a membership. So
Awesome.
welcome to the membership program, all you guys who were just gifted memberships. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Look, it helps support the channel, and also it gives other people access to some of the membership benefits that they might enjoy. And look, if it's not for you, it automatically discontinues after a month anyway, so don't worry about it. And also for the new members, if you link your Discord, you have to go to Discord and then link it to your YouTube account, you will be automatically added to the members and patrons only Discord server. So feel free to come hang out with us while your gift subscription lasts, and if you like it, feel free to renew.
The rate of accumulation would be changed to a much lower number. But I believe at the time of the flood, it was mostly fresh water.
Okay, so we're going to think about this. So at the beginning of the flood, all the ocean animals are freshwater animals. Plants too, and algae and whatnot, right? So the flood apparently causes whole, somehow evaporate flood or salt plumes to burst into the ocean, rapidly salinating it in the first 100 or so years, which I don't know if you guys have ever tried to add a bunch of salt to a freshwater aquarium. It kills the organisms in the aquarium pretty darn fast. So Noah would have stepped off onto an ocean just basically covered in dead animals, and then that would have persisted as an ecological disaster for 100 years. So far from having the world recover after the flood, it's basically doomed. Because I don't know if you know this, but oceanic ecosystems are pretty important for just, the worldwide biosphere. For instance, virtually all the oxygen on Earth comes from algae in the ocean, not from trees. So, kill off all the algae. That's pretty much death sentence for everybody. It's good to know that Kent is inventing new problems for the flood, because I didn't even think of that as a problem. All right, Carrie Bronson for $5 says, if you drank for post hoc excuse to account for stuff, the stream would just become 2 hours of you steadily sipping from a bottle. Yes. Accurate.
What is the ultimate goal of Kentwood Bent?
Eventually, I just plug in an IV that just drips beer into my veins directly.
One drop at a time.
Fine, I guess I'm not planning on mainlining beer. Don't worry.
I was joking.
Yeah.
And the oceans have gradually become saltier.
Well, you say gradually, but okay.
And today they're 3.6% salt.
I feel like when Kent talks, it's either nonsense or just pure speculation.
Occasionally, it's absolute lies.
Yeah, that could be. I guess you could call it a subset of nonsense, but all of it's nonsense anyway.
Yeah.
There's nothing about the salt in the ocean that is harmful to the creation view.
You know what? I'm just going to let it go. I don't want to get into all the reasons why that I've already said why this is actually a problem for you, Kent, because I've already said them.
I did a debate, an atheist one time, and he said, Hovind, could you please tell me how the freshwater fish survive?
You ever had a debate with an atheist on a plane?
So we might drink for stories that didn't happen here, but it's going to depend, because so far the story is plausible.
Was flood. Because if you put freshwater fish in salt water, they die.
True.
I said, well, sir, aren't you assuming the flood was salt water? He said, the ocean is salt water.
Kent, you're the one who has just now told us why the flood was salt water, because according to you, salt plumes melted out of the ground, came into the oceans, and saltified the oceans, which is not a real word, but that's okay. I'm going to use it anyway, because, I'm 3 ciders in, so you guys have to deal with that. You're telling me right now that the flood became salty. Who cares if the ocean started out salty? They became salty. This is just a worse problem for you. Also, Holy Smalls for $5 says, if the oceans were, quote, fresh water before the flood, wouldn't that mean all ocean life went through rapid evolution just to adapt? It would have to. Yeah. Kent Hovind's idea would require extremely rapid evolution, and we're talking like 4 or 5 generations kind of radical changes to biochemistry. Yep.
That many?
Yeah. The thing is,
not like 1 or 2?
Well, so I'm being generous.
I don't know.
I'm being generous.
How do I know?
The thing is, most creation accounts of the flood and subsequent few centuries or even millennia require evolution to travel at a pace that no normal biologist would ever find plausible. Talking like supercharged hyper-evolution on steroids. And then like, oh yeah, that's fine. But actual evolution where, humans and chimpanzees, who, by the way, are more closely related than many things creationists think are the same kind, like lions and tigers. Yeah, chimpanzees are closer to humans than lions are to tigers. Then they're like, oh no, that's not okay. No, but lions and tigers and all house cats and lynxes and all that, they all felines evolved from one single pair of felines on Ark. Humans and chimpanzees, though? Nope. Impossible. Ignore the fact that they're more genetically similar than any two felids are.
Genetics, that's just the work of the devil.
Basically.
I said, well, yeah, it is today. But I think during the flood, it's probably freshwater.
Despise telescopes and microscopes.
Water.
They really do.
Atheists would have argued, how could Noah carry enough water on the ark for all the animals? Well, that question assumes that you can't drink the water right outside.
You mean the water that's full of dead corpses, Kent? According to the entire point of the flood? The water that's
really
literally
salty water?
You think, he's saying it's becoming salty. And also, even if it weren't salty, it's full of dead bodies.
Don't drink salt water.
I'm just going to take a drink for like...
I'd never thought I'd have to say that on a Kent with Bent, but just don't drink salt water. It's not a good idea.
Yeah. Kent Hovind telling us how the salt water became salty during the flood, as well as, full of corpses. Totally fine to drink. Unless Noah had a big desalination plant, which also disinfected the water, you're not going to be able to just lower a bucket.
Doesn't it?
Also, do you think
clever.
Kent knows that you can't just dip a bucket into into a lake and then just drink that? Like, that's not going to work. I mean, at least it won't work for the humans. Maybe it'll work for some animals. I mean, okay.
You'll get sick, but...
Fair. Technically, yes. You're physically capable of drinking
You're
lake water.
capable of... I bet Kent drinks lake water all the time. And that explains a lot about the way his brain works. Because all the parasites in there from all the lake water he's been drinking his whole life.
He's
unfiltered.
He's had a slow burn version of the brain-eating amoebas. Like his whole life.
They're swimming around. There's not much in here. Oh, look, there's some brain.
They're currently eating at the last few scraps, which explains some of his recent performances.
I don't want to make jokes about his brain, especially after
that's fair.
Medical things that happen.
Look, I don't feel bad for Kent. However, it was rough to watch, and I don't suggest other people put Kent's recent problems in their brain. Because in case you guys don't know, he's had some on-camera problems, which were taken off of his channel, but there are places you can find it. I don't recommend it, because as much as I dislike Kent, as much as he's a horrible human being, watching that happen to a person is... And it's not something that I suggest putting in your brain. I regret having done it. So, we'll just say that. I'm not going to wish Kent well, because I don't wish him well. I just don't want to watch it happen.
What if it's a freshwater flood? Plus
all the salt plumes that you say were breaking through the floodwaters, but okay.
Water floats on salt water.
That is basically true. You can have salt stratification. In fact, actually, super salty areas of the ocean can actually form under ocean rivers, right? Where the extra salty water actually flows in channels under the ocean and can actually do things like carve out channels and have erosion and all the normal features that you associate with rivers underwater, which is really cool. So that is true. And interestingly, if you ever played Subnautica, they have underwater rivers that are presumably based on salt stratification, which is just a nice little scientific touch that they put into that game. Which, by the way, I think is a great game. Low replayability, but really good for your first like 1 or 2 playthroughs. Excellent game. Also, while not a horror game, if you have thalassophobia or claustrophobia, maybe give that one a miss. Because my
or
goodness,
if you're just a coward.
Well, but if you have thalassophobia or claustrophobia, that might not be the game for you. Because my goodness is great at triggering both of those fears. Because I don't have either, but I felt like I did sometimes when I was playing that game. So, yeah.
The Amazon River, I think the story's at the Amazon. There's a guy, rescue ship went out to pick up this guy. His ship had capsized, and he'd been out there for several days in a raft, And as the ship approached, he's like 100 miles off the coast of South America, I believe, is the way the story went.
Sure.
And he was dying of thirst. 3 days, no water. You know, because you don't want to drink salt water because it makes it worse, makes you saltier, you know.
Hey, that's right. Drinking salt water is worse than just not drinking.
Figured that out.
He said, "Oh, give me a drink." I said, "Well, dip your head over the side and take a drink."
No, they didn't. No one said that. That's a story that didn't happen. We're taking a drink for that.
He said, "No, it's salt water, I'll die." They said, "No, no, it's fresh water." He said, "I'm in the ocean, man, it's salt water." He said, "No, you're within 100 miles of Brazil. That Amazon River is pushing fresh water out so fast, it floats on top of the salt water, goes out 100 miles.
First, I don't know if that's true, but second, I don't want to drink Amazon runoff either.
Why not?
Oh, because, you know, it's full of all sorts of horrible, nasty crap.
Yeah. So. Oh, yeah, I guess that would be bad.
Yeah.
I believe is the number,
Why is
something
Kent
close
so
to that. It's
bad
fresh
with water.
water floating on top, way out there. So bend your head over, get a drink. You know, you could have had a drink all this time.
Maybe if you boiled it, which I'm going to go ahead and guess his life raft didn't have the equipment to boil fresh water to make it safe.
He's a life straw.
Also, Silver Harlow, who's been a member for 7 months at the tetrapod level, thank you very much, Silver Harlow, says, freshwater kills saltwater fish. Frowny face. Yes, yes it does. Basically, fish have salinity bands that they can exist in. Any given species of fish is going to have a maximum and a minimum, like, livable salinity. Go outside that, sorry. There are a few fish that have very, very wide ones. These are the ones that tend to live in like estuaries or travel between fresh and salt water. Some sharks can do that. Like there are some sharks that will appear pretty far inland in rivers. Salmon is another good example where, you know, salmon spawn freshwater, then they live most of their lives in the ocean, and they come back to fresh. You know, for their usually one and only reproductive event. Some salmon manage to spawn twice. It's very rare, but yeah. For the most part, fish have a very narrow band of salinity, which you would know if you ever kept an aquarium, whether salt or freshwater, or for that matter, like a brackish water aquarium. Yeah.
But so I suspect even if there were salt water in the flood, it would tend to sink, and fresh water would float on top.
Maybe, but that's still not going to solve the problem of all the corpse juice.
So still, Noah could have gotten, or the salt content was less. Today it's 3.6%. And so the oceans have become saltier. Now today we have freshwater crocodiles and saltwater crocodiles.
That's what they're called. I mean, crocodiles, because they're not just constantly breathing in and drinking the water that they're around, can swim in both, right? Sort of like humans can swim in the ocean. It's not that big of a deal. But freshwater crocodiles don't tend to like cross oceans, whereas saltwater crocodiles will do things like island hop around like Melanesia and Melanesia and Australia. So this is not the same thing as fresh and saltwater fish, but I don't know if Kent is going to be stupid about it. We're not going to drink for him being stupid about it yet. We're going to wait for him to actually do it.
There are freshwater bass.
Which one would surprise me?
Yeah, I don't know either.
And saltwater bass. There are freshwater salmon and saltwater salmon.
No. We're going to take a drink for freshwater and saltwater salmon. All salmon are fresh and saltwater salmon because they start in the rivers, they go to the ocean, and they come back.
How does he not know that?
Know about bass, but also...
Even I do that.
Yeah. Also, he is, in fact, being stupid about the crocodiles, so we're going to take a drink. Saltwater crocodiles don't just live in the ocean, right? It's just not... They're not like sea snakes, right, who just live their entire lives in the ocean, or dolphins, except for the river dolphins, live their entire lives in the ocean. They swim between islands occasionally. They can live in brackish water. But, like, they're not just constantly living in and drinking ocean water. That's not how saltwater crocodiles work. And freshwater crocodiles can cross saltwater if they have to.
And the freshwater and saltwater crocodiles probably had a common ancestor.
And you're right. I'll take a drink for you being right about that. They probably did. Good point.
Crocodile.
I mean,
yep.
We didn't have to say probably.
We'll take it. I'm going to take another drink though. Whenever two organisms of a particular taxon had a common ancestor, by definition, that common ancestor was part of the same taxon. So if two crocodiles have a common ancestor, the common ancestor has to have been a crocodile. I thought I hit play. I didn't.
Correct, okay. One guy said, well, that's evolution. I said,
that guy was right, because evolution is a change in allele frequencies in a population over time or between generations. And to go from being a saltwater crocodile to a freshwater crocodile, it's going to require that you change allele frequencies between those populations. So, congrats, that's evolution.
no.
And
Going
doesn't
from a
understand
freshwater croc
evolution.
to a saltwater croc is a minor change compared.
And that's not what happened. Oh my goodness, Kent, you just said it. I'm going to have to pour a new drink, and I'm going to take another drink. Kent just said it, and I can't believe I have to talk about this. Here's the +1 to the drink counter. Here's my drink. Kent, you yourself just said that the fresh and saltwater crocodiles had a common ancestor that was a crocodile. That's true. We took a drink for it. But that common ancestor wasn't itself either the modern fresh or the modern saltwater crocodile. It was their common ancestor. One didn't evolve from the other. They both evolved from their common ancestor, which wasn't either. Like, this is just the basic thing, like, don't strawman your opponent. Like, I don't argue against Christianity broadly because I don't really care to. But if I did, you know what I wouldn't say? I wouldn't say Christianity is false because the sun keeps spinning around its axis. You know why? Because nothing about Christianity says that the sun shouldn't be doing that. It's a straw man. Don't straw man your opponents. It just makes you look like a disingenuous ass.
Because that's what you are.
Well, I mean, true. Kent is being
People
very
see
honest.
you for who you are, no matter how you pretend to be. When you say that you're something else, they don't care. They see what you do and who you are, Kent.
Yep.
You're a fraud.
To what you believe.
You are pure speculation.
So you believe they changed from a rock to a croc.
My goodness. No one
Those
believes
kind of
that
rhyme,
evolution-
so therefore it must be true.
That's fair. It's decent wordplay, but no one believes that it started with a rock.
Now we're talking real major overhaul here, okay? Go from a rock to a croc.
Look, here's the thing. If you want to say evolution isn't true, you can't do it by saying, well, I just accept less evolution. That just means you accept evolution, right? You can argue about how much of it is real, which is fair, which is actually what Paleologos points out. Paleologos, a creationist, says creationists hold to evolution, just not universal common ancestry. Yeah, basically, that's correct. Every young Earth creationist account I've encountered has said that evolution is a real thing that happens. Don't always realize that that's what they're saying. But they then say, but it has limits. So what you actually need to do is argue as to where the limits are and how you know. Now, personally, I think that creationists have failed about as badly as flat earthers have failed to demonstrate that the Earth isn't a globe when it comes to demonstrating that universal common ancestry isn't true life on Earth. But that's a separate topic. That's what you have to do. Just pretending that evolution isn't going to help. But that's what virtually all of them do. And that's not just a Ken Hovind thing. Like, if you watch like Jackson with Jackson, which is one of the shows that I do on Tuesdays with Jackson Wheat, it's usually the fourth Tuesday of the month. I mean, that's basically Charles Jackson's whole thing against evolution. Oh, well, that evolution, that doesn't count. That's not real evolution. Okay.
Pisces don't understand evolution at all. And they come up with the crazy, well, the ones we're talking about, Kent and Charles Jackson, they come up with these crazy ideas that have nothing to do with how evolution really works. And they have no idea what they're talking about. And for some reason, Kent keeps insisting on, like, the 6 types of evolution. I guess I haven't followed him recently, so I don't know. Maybe he doesn't still insist on that. But it is quite nonsensical.
We're going to play a little bit more Kent, and I think that might end up being our last bit of Kent before we go on to do wrap-up stuff. Almost at the end.
I met a guy in Alabama. He said, here he is right here, David Clifton.
Did he have a banjo on his knee?
You can call him up. There's his phone number. And
Don't call these people, everyone. Ken, stop giving out everyone's damn phone number.
Oak Grove, Alabama, outside of Birmingham. He said, Brother Hovind, I've worked with aquariums all my life. He said, I took black mollies, which is a freshwater fish. There's a picture of one there, black molly. Cool. And I slowly added sea salt to their aquarium. After 2 weeks, they became saltwater fish.
I don't believe you.
When I put them back in freshwater, they died in 30 minutes.
Cool. Where's the paper? Because
How much salt
take
did
it
he
out.
add? Just, a little salt shaker salt.
yeah, I don't know. But here's the other thing, right?
And then he just never fed his fish, so they died.
Let's say you call this guy and he says, "Yep, I did it. Great. What controls did you do? Did you write? Did you publish a paper? I mean, how do we know that what you did is what you said you did? Has anyone reproduced it? It's literally just my buddy Bubba. He totally did this thing, and he'll tell you. Okay, cool. I don't
Yeah, but he has a
care.
picture standing next to him, or maybe someone else. I don't know.
I mean,
Can't
I'll
say for
assume it's
sure.
him. It just doesn't matter.
And there's a date there, and
Oh.
there's a phone number with area code.
Well, let's hear the end of this story from Kent.
2 weeks of gradually adding salt, they adapted to it just fine.
Yeah, as DM points out, citation needed.
I read the story and I can't document it now. Maybe if one of you here or somebody on tape can.
Oh, so it doesn't matter.
It must be true.
All right, guys.
It must be true, even though it's not documentable.
We're going to start some wrap-up stuff. We only have 9 minutes left of this video, so which means I'm probably going to have to download the next one.
Good idea.
Yeah, this was a shorter one. Most of these are like an hour and a half, 2 hours. This one's only like an hour and 12 minutes, and most of it was just Kent waffling about stuff that doesn't matter, so we didn't pause as often as we do in many of them. So, guys, I want to say thank you very much to everyone who's here. Do please hit like; it really helps. Kent, or sorry, Bent. You're not Kent. You're Bent. You're the better part.
I got bent.
Yeah, sorry about that. Do you have anything coming up that you want to talk about?
No, I have nothing coming up that I want to talk about.
Okay, fair enough. Let's look ahead at the channel.
Nothing.
So, I have not heard from Maddie. So right now, I think RPG shows with her are on hold. In case you guys don't know, Maddie from Science Side Up has recently given birth to a daughter. That's been announced on Twitter, so I'm not spilling the beans there. Both mother and daughter are healthy and doing well, as far as I know, which is, I mean, I heard from Maddie about a week ago. So, good news there. Everything there is good. She will be hopefully getting back to regular appearances on this channel, as well as Top Hats Off and Chesh's channel for RPG shows. Right now, I think both of the games that she is in publicly on my channel and Chesh's channel are going to be on hiatus until she's back. On the 8th, I will be premiering the Pete Greer series as a supercut called Pastor Doesn't Understand Evolution, the movie. Like a 2-hour some and change video. It'll be on noon Pacific on 8th. On the 10th, I don't know. I think I'm going to do another Dapper Reacts. We might have Ashanti with us because she will be back from her convention. We also might not do that. So who knows? That's about as far ahead as I want to look right now. Once again, guys, it really helps the channel a lot if you join the channel or you join the Patreon. Both of them get you access to great goodies. And again, if you can't do that, do hit like. I see that some of you haven't. Get on that. And I want to say thank you very much to everyone who's been here. All the guest memberships are great. And I really, really appreciate all of your support. And we're going to get out of here. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Benthoven, Denny5252, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabity Babbity, McSpooks, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Veed, and Patrick Dennis. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if an annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.